There's a smell that only old houses have. It's not dirt, it's memory. I'm 85 years old and my house is full of things others have thrown away. They say I'm a hoarder. I prefer to say I'm a rescuer of forgotten things. My name is Susan. My house is full. I wouldn't say messy because I know exactly where everything is. Sometimes it's hard to walk through, yes. There are boxes piled all along the hallway, bags of clothes, magazines, broken dolls, books without covers, frames without photos, chipped mugs. Each one has its reason. I don't keep things because I'm afraid to throw them away. I keep them because I'm afraid to forget. Look at this, a clock with no hands that I found in the trash. I rescued it because it reminded me of my husband, Ryan. Ah, Ryan. He passed away 27 years ago. A heart attack all of a sudden while fixing a chair in the yard. He was a calm man. Sometimes I catch myself talking to him still, as if he were there, sitting by the window with his cup of coffee. I miss him dearly, but I will never forget him. For years, I've been collecting what others throw away. On the corner of the street, they always leave things. I watch them, and the first thing I think isn't, this is useful or this is broken, but who abandoned you here? And then I pick it up because I don't like seeing anything left behind. When people walk past my house, they avoid looking. My neighbor across the street, Emma, says my garden looks like the storage room of an old market. It doesn't bother me. Among the flower pots and rusty chairs, little flowers still manage to grow. It's funny, isn't it? Even life finds its way through what others call trash. I think it all started when I was a child, when my mother died. I was 12 years old. She never kept anything. She threw everything away like a typical American consumer. The house must breathe, she used to say. When she died, my Aunt Daphne came, and in a single afternoon emptied her closet. I watched from the doorway as she folded Mom's dresses. She didn't even cry for her death. I asked her to let me keep the wool shawl, the one she always wore in winter. She said it was old and ugly and threw it into the fire. That night, I swore that nothing I cared about would ever end up in the trash. Since then, I can't stand the thought of something cherished ending up alone in the garbage. As if by saving them, I could stop the world from falling apart before my eyes. Life was hard, but not unfair. I had to work from a young age. I was a secretary in an accounting office for almost 40 years. I didn't marry early. In fact, I almost didn't marry at all. And then Ryan appeared. We got married when I was 37. He was 10 years older. We didn't have children for a long time, and then Charlotte came, our only daughter. She was our joy and our frustration at once because she couldn't stand my habits. Ever since she was a little girl, she would complain about why I kept everything. Sometimes she made fun of me. Mom, why do you have 3 irons? None of them work. And I would answer, they work to remember, leave them there. Ryan understood a little more. He never judged me. He had his own way of keeping things too. In his workshop, he wouldn't throw away a single nail. He said it might be useful someday. Maybe that's why we got along so well. We shared the same respect for what others discarded. After he retired, he began spending more time at home. He liked to repair my finds. I'd bring him a broken clock, and he'd open it gently and say, "It still has some spring left," or he'd come across a crooked frame, straighten it, and promise that one day we'd put our photos in it together. I don't know if we ever did. When he died, the clock he was fixing still had the screws lying on the table. I never moved them. They're still there, covered in dust and buried under piles of clothes and boxes, but in their place. Just as he left them a few years ago, I still used to have visitors. My daughter would come every Sunday with my grandchildren. At first, they came laughing. Then, little by little, the uneasiness grew. "Mom, this isn't normal anymore," she said one afternoon, looking at the living room, piled high up to the ceiling. "You can't live among so many things." I just smiled and served her coffee. She doesn't understand. How can I explain to her that every object here represents a story? That single shoe belonged to a child who must have cried when he lost it. That old radio once played songs that made someone fall in love. That lamp with the broken shade lit a dinner that might have been the last between two people who loved each other. I know I sound poetic, but it could have happened that way. I told her that, and she looked at me with eyes full of pity. "Mom, they're not people. They're things, and you're crazy. You need help." Then I realized we no longer spoke the same language, and I got very angry. She left, she abandoned me. It's been 3 years since she last came home. Since that day, the visits have grown fewer and fewer until they disappeared altogether. Sometimes she calls me on the phone once a month to ask if I'm okay. I always answer yes, that I'm still in company. And it's not a lie. My things talk to me, even if she can't understand it. Every morning, I walk around the neighborhood. My cane and this little cart accompany me. People already know me. Some children greet me. "Here comes Doña Susan, the lady of the knickknacks." It makes me laugh. It used to hurt, but now I take it as a title of nobility. Once, I found a broken porcelain bird among the neighborhood trash. I carefully glued its wing and placed it on the window. Every morning I greet it, "Good morning, little one." At first I did it as a joke, but then I caught myself smiling when I saw it. I think the secret of life is to keep talking to what you love, even if it no longer answers. Another time, I found a letter in a torn envelope, abandoned at a bus stop. It was written in blue ink. It didn't say much, just a farewell. "If one day you come back, I'll be here, even if I wither waiting for you." I can recite it by heart. It's framed next to Ryan's portrait. Somehow I feel that letter was also for me. Sometimes I buy broken things at the market out of pure compassion. People look at me strangely when I offer money for a plate without a rim or a figure without a head, but for me it's the same as adopting a wounded animal. And every time something comes back to life in my hands, I feel that I too am fixing myself a little inside. Ryan was different. He was the balance that my chaos was missing. Sometimes he'd come home after my rescues and laugh when he saw me walk in with bags full of things. I remember clearly the day he died. I heard a dull thud, like when a heavy picture frame falls. I ran, and there he was, lying on the floor. I cry every time I remember it. There were no words, no goodbye, as if the world had been put on pause. Since then, every sound in the house, the creak of the wood, the brush of the wind against the windows, I feel that he's still here. At night, loneliness consumes me and makes me very sad. I often sit in the old chair in the yard and read aloud the titles of the books I've rescued from the trash. French Cooking Manual, Story of a Gray Cat, Diary of a Summer in Bloom. It feels as if saying their names aloud gives them existence again. Sometimes I imagine that I live in a parallel world, one where abandoned things have a soul. In that world, my shelves would be temples and I would be the guardian of the lost. Each object would have its own corner, its story told one last time before going to sleep. I've had enough time to think about life. At 85, I no longer plan for the future. I simply wait for it, calmly, sitting down. And in that waiting, I've learned a few things. For example, one doesn't hold on to objects for what they are, but for what they represented, or for what we wish they had been. That every person leaves invisible traces, and those traces need something to rest on so they don't disappear. It fell to me to turn my home into that support. I also came to understand that people don't always abandon things out of cruelty. Sometimes it's out of fear of remembering. And that I understand because some memories hurt like walking barefoot over glass. My daughter tells me I should sell everything, start over. But at my age, one doesn't start anything. One simply finishes with dignity with what one has. And what I have is this: the ticking of silent clocks, the song of things nobody wanted. Besides, I'm old now, I can't move such heavy things. But those aren't excuses. The truth is, I don't want to. Something changed recently. A group from the city came knocking on my door. They said my house was a health hazard. They came in wearing masks, taking pictures. A young woman spoke to me in a sweet voice. "We're going to help you clean up a little, Mrs. Susan." I replied, "Please, don't clean. My whole life is in here. If you move one thing, my soul will fall apart." She looked at me with sadness, and I think she understood more than she said. She left me her phone number in case you need someone to talk to. I haven't called, but sometimes I pick up that little piece of paper and fold it over and over again, as if it were a small shared secret. After they left, I spent the whole afternoon caressing the objects, one by one, asking them for forgiveness. I felt afraid, as if they had warned me that all of this would soon disappear. If one day they come to empty out my house, I like to imagine someone stopping for 5 minutes, looking at a teacup, a lock of yarn, an old letter, and feeling something. Anything. Tenderness, curiosity, maybe a touch of sadness. If that person feels that, then my life will have meaning, because I will have restored, even for an instant, the ability to look with compassion. I hardly go out anymore. My body has become fragile and it's hard for me to walk. But I still get up slowly, open the curtains, and let the light in. I like to think that when the end comes, which can't be too far away, Ryan will come for me. Maybe he'll knock on the door, or maybe he'll find it open. And when he does, he'll sit with me among my piles of treasures, smile, and say, "See, Susan, they were right after all. All this was worth it." And I'll go with him, peacefully, knowing that the things no one wanted will no longer be alone. And yes, I'm a hoarder. I don't like the word, but I've learned not to argue about it, even if it bothers me. People repeat it every time someone from the government comes by, or the neighbors, or my daughter when she dares to visit me, though she doesn't anymore. Sometimes they say that word with disgust, other times with pity, as if I were some sort of curiosity they're ashamed to show. But no one ever asks why I keep what I keep. No one understands that it's not about the things themselves, but about the stories that were abandoned and rescued by me. I'll never be alone again. Thank you so much for listening.